not just impressed, because it was one thing to be impressed, but to have somebody who understands the assignment, as it relates to us. I was like, she got to come back. She got to come back frequently. All right. So if you are in a space of, mental unrest and you're not feeling quite yourself, this is a good time to call up, because we have a doctor in the house. She is a psychiatry residency director. So she directs the whole psychiatry department at Howard University Medical School. Let me welcome the one and only Dr. Danielle Hairston is back.
Oh,
Hello.
Thank you for having me back in the building, in the space.
Listen, yes. A doc named Danny. Is that what we're saying?
That is
Okay.
it. Yes.
That is where you can follow her. A DOC named Danny. I was reading this interesting report on how melanemic folk are dying from deaths of despair, which they say is fueled by their disconnect of religion, which is also the disconnect from community. And I was like, they have such nice phrases for the sicknesses that lead them to, take their own lives, or to, drink themselves to death. Deaths of despair. We don't get those kind of nice terms in our community. Is it time for us to start coining some things that we suffer from?
Deaths of despair. That's an interesting term. I think that we don't get those nice terms, period. Even if you happen to suffer from bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, it's not, oh, I'm understanding what's going on with you. That's a crazy person. Lock them up is usually the answer. Institutionalization, largest mental health care provider, jail. So it's nice to hear that someone there's some empathy for someone. We need some caring about. What about racial trauma? What about deaths by racial trauma? Things like that.
Right,
but
right.
That's
Dr. Joy DeGruy, has post-Atlantic slave syndrome.
Stress disorder.
Something like that,
Yeah.
But so she's coined something that I can't pull from my head, but. I was telling the folk at the start of the show that I'm reading The Coming by Dr. Daniel Black, and he was in Nubia on Monday. And
I heard you talking about that yesterday.
My goodness, the way in which he somehow evoked everything that happened in the holds of those ships and made it so palpable, and like you can smell, taste, and feel every single moment of the trauma. To be here in this body right now, what are some of the ways that we can work through our own healing? I recommend everyone go get therapy, but are there some practices, Dr. Danny, that we could all do on a daily basis to help that along?
I think the first thing that we have to do as a people, as family, as friends, as supporters, is acknowledge what's going on and talk about it. I know that even in my own family, when I want to talk to my mother about something that might have happened in my childhood, she's like, you're being negative. We don't need to bring up the past. We don't need to talk about that. And I'm like, well, we do need to talk about it, because something that happened back then is now impacting me in my current life and my relationships now, and me trying to be a parent now. So I want to know how we got here, because the way we got here is not just from my mother, but it's from her grandmother, it's from her parents, her father. So we have to acknowledge that this is going on, that things are happening, and that we need to discuss them. I think that we've known that in order to survive, to get through slavery, you can't be happy. Yeah, you got to be happy when they say. You can't be sad. You can't look like you're stressed. You can't take a break in order to survive, right? But we have to grow as a people and as a community and allow people to talk about what's going on. It cannot be a secret. It cannot be something that we keep in the back rooms. It can't be, oh, we don't talk about that anymore. It needs to show up. It needs to show up in our shows, which, if you didn't know, I love to binge a good series, but it needs to show up in our shows. Like, that's why I appreciate everything from Queen Sugar to P Valley, which is what I'm on right now, catching up, because it's talking about the trauma. It's talking about what's happening in our communities. And we haven't had our stories told. We haven't had that visibility for so long.
I was saying that, I don't spend a whole lot of time in the past. I was like, okay, all of those things happen. I'm here. So let me be present in my body here so that I can do the things that need to be done for there, meaning 100 years from now, 50 years from now, right? Is that healthy?
Yes, that is healthy in a way. That's healthy. I don't subscribe to the Freud school of spend 10 years, 12 years, 15 years with your psychologist and your psychiatrist talking about everything that happened. What do I remember from? No, I don't subscribe to that. But if it is something, yes. Right. Yes. That's not my style. I'm not a psychodynamic, but there are, shout out to the wonderful Black psychodynamic trained psychiatrists and therapists that there are. I'm more of a problem oriented, like, this is what's happening. How do we get here? And how do we fix this? So it is good to be in the moment. But Professor Hunter, if something from your past is impacting you today, you got to address it. I didn't say you got to live there and talk about it every 5 minutes or every time you go to therapy, but you do have to understand how it brought you to where you are.
I totally agree with that. Now, here's the challenge. You just brought up the mothers. My mother, probably a lot of y'all's mothers were raised in a generation where you don't talk about, like you said, you don't talk about these things. Trying to get them to talk, because we have been conditioned to bury the pain. We bury the pain. We don't talk about the pain. Like, I know you done been through something, which is why you behave the way you behave.
Exactly right.
So I have a choice. Like, I can't make you tell me, but I'm also not going to allow you to mistreat me because you won't deal with that. Do you see what I'm saying? So yeah. I have a zero tolerance. I don't care who you are, to how I'm going to be treated. I'm going to be treated a certain kind of way. I don't care. Yes, whatever. So is that healthy to have a zero tolerant behavior?
I already loved you before I was even here, because yes, that is me too. Like, boundaries. So, okay, you don't want to talk about it? That's fine. But this is what I'm going to do. I am going to go to therapy. I am going to set this time up. I'm not going to engage in anything else. This is my protected time. This is what I need to do for myself. And if you are able to talk about it at any time, I'm here for you. But I have to set up this boundary. Like, I'm not going to, not that this happens in my house necessarily, but in some families, like, I'm not going to engage in, we're not going to be cussing at kids in here. Like, I'm not going to engage or allow for that to happen. I'm not going to allow for you to continue mistreatment that you felt from generations and generations, because there are all types of pediatricians and psychiatrists who have thoughts on spanking and beating children and things like that, and what type of discipline there is. But even if you're not going to talk about it, I am going to do something to change it. You cannot change, some of these. I'm a child of older parents. Like, my brother is 17 years older than me. So, wow. Yeah, my parents were older. My father was in the civil rights movement. He was like in a sit-in in Raleigh, North Carolina. So these are some older parents, right? But some things I will say, well, my mother will say, well, you were raised that way. And I'm like, and my child won't be, because we don't have to continue this thing. My big thing is ending generational trauma. And ending generational trauma is multifaceted, right? It means a lot of things. Well, stopping stuff that we're practicing, stopping things that we were saying, stopping things that we were accepting is the biggest thing for me.
Dr. Joy DeGruy is post-traumatic slave syndrome. Thank you, Smiz. I said this today, that some of us, we have no due north. A lot of us, we've been conditioned because we saw things that were wrong. We knew they were wrong. There's not anything we could do about it. 300, 400, 200 civil rights. We knew it was wrong, but we didn't have any power. So we had to sit in that wrongness of watching people do wrong things. And it made it difficult, because now you're raising children. Things are wrong, but we've been so conditioned to ignore the wrong and just push through. But I said, some of us are sitting across the Thanksgiving table, at the family reunion with somebody that has created harm in the family, that uncle that maybe touched everybody. And we don't say nothing. We don't talk about it, right? But the harm is there. And the fact is, we're now teaching the next generation to sit in that, right? How do we break that? Because there are a lot of people listening right now that have that experience across the Thanksgiving table, sitting across from somebody that has abused or harmed them. And the whole family is complicit.
Yeah, I think that we know this. This has been happening. It happens across the field, across families. Again, it's about the boundaries for what you will accept and what you will remain silent about. So if someone is doing something, has done something, has perpetuated something in your family, it's time for you to say, I'm not going to come at this time when this person is here. I can't engage. Like, for my own self-care, for my own peace of mind, I can't engage in that space. Like, if y'all want to allow that to continue, that's fine. But for my own sanity, for me to have peace this holiday season or period, I'm going to have to remove myself from this situation. I was talking about that this morning, actually randomly, removing yourself from a situation, because you cannot change what other people are doing, but you can change your reaction. And that's something I have to work on myself. Talk about with my therapist on Monday, because you can't change everyone, but you can change your reaction, and you can change what you accept and you tolerate, and what you show your children and your family, whoever, that you're going to tolerate and what is accepted.
Should you show up and tell everything? That's my approach. I'm gonna tell everything. I don't even get invited, because they know if I come, I'm telling I'm not keeping nothing. I'm telling on you. I'm telling everything that I know. I'm going to say it out loud publicly.
Yeah. And if you need that, sometimes that's the way to do it also. People in my family say like, oh, here she comes. Because every time it's going to be some type of lecture. It's going to be some type of, actually, we don't say that anymore. No, we don't say committed suicide. We say death by suicide, suicidal thoughts. And they're like, okay, but it's just at the kitchen table. I'm like, I don't care. I want you all to work on this. And like, here we go with another lecture from her. And yes, it is going to be another lesson from me every time, because again, I don't want things to continue in our families and our friends, in our communities.
There's the 4 agreements, and one of the agreements is to be impeccable with your word, right? And as you're talking, I think about that as it relates to the N word that that's one, for me right now, that's when I feel like that is, if we can get that one thing collectively and agree to it, yeah, you're going, no, we cannot, Dr. Danny, we're not going to be able. That's one thing that we can't give that up. It's like oxtails and pig feet. Like, what is it like? What is it about that word that we, feel a kinship to?
I do not know. I wish that we could get away from it. I'm with you. I want us to get away from it too, because I think that people don't understand the historical implication that this word has had. And if they truly understood, then they wouldn't want to use it. But now it's been embedded so much in our culture, and people have so many excuses for it, that they just, can't seem to let it go. And I come from a family with a very Southern grandmother, and I heard her say the N word like all the time. And she grew up in an environment where it was used by white people, and she still would say that word, talk about other people in the family, like, look at this N word in here. I'm like, grandma, please. But my mother, a DC native, did not talk like that. Like, she never used that word. That word was never, ever spoken from her. And I think it's cultural at this point, and I wish that we could stop, and I wish there could be a lesson on why we need to stop, but it's embedded in the music, and then people say it. Even when I talk about, don't say that to me, like, don't call me that, don't say that. Even with my friends who are doctors and professionals and lawyers, they're like, it's just like a term of endearment. Can we have another term of endearment, please? But yeah, that's why they don't want my lessons, but that's what I'm going to continue as well.
So we could party poop together. Dr. Danny's here. Apparently we're the party poopers, because I can't seem to.
We are the party lesson givers.
Party lesson. But at some point you're like, oh, can I just let it go? And it's like, no, because when you know better, there's no excuse, right? Like you do know better, so you can't let it go. And letting it go feels like the term silence is acquiescence. It feels like you're accepting it. And Yeah, I can't do it either. Dr. Danielle Hairston is here, psychiatry residency director at Howard University.